me say a pleasant good morning to our listeners and viewers. Welcome to The Point. It's Tuesday, the 18th day of February 2025. It's Opposition Tuesday on To The Point this morning. I'm your host, GT. Let me say good morning to those of you listening via social media platforms, whether it's a Facebook page, YouTube channels. Good morning to you. Those of you, of course, any part of the island that you are listening and viewing this morning, I want to wish you a splendid day. Let me say good morning to my guest once again, Mr. Oliver Joseph, with us this morning. Did promise to be back with us this morning and have certainly kept that promise, and we're certainly happy to have you back this morning. Welcome back, sir, and good morning to you.
Good morning to you and to all your viewers and listeners, wherever they may be. I want to wish you a very productive day.
All right. Last week, we're going to continue this week where we left off last week. Of course, we focus a whole lot on the 1958 Pension Act and the new pension plan that is out right now. You gave the difference between both plans. And, of course, we also spoke a lot on the effects on workers in terms of the new plan and so forth. We spent a bit of time talking about that. So we're going to continue this morning. So one of the key focus for today's conversation will start off this morning will be in terms of the qualification. All right. Yeah. That's what we plan to kick off this morning on in terms of the retirement age, how different it is going to be with this plan and so forth. We're going to talk a wee bit about that. So let's get the conversation rolling up this morning. Is there a different angle you want to take on that in terms of what it is?
Thank you very much. I think we're starting from the correct point. We must look at the scope and the application of the Act.
Okay.
So what I have in front of me is the Act that was passed, and for the listeners and viewers, it is Act number 19 of 2024.
Okay.
So people who wish to follow, because it's online.
Yes.
And you also have the hard
get
copy.
themselves a copy of it.
Yes,
and follow through.
They can go to the print tree and purchase a hard copy.
All right.
So it's Act number 19 of 2024, which was assented to by the Governor General and gazetted on the 30th of December 2024. So that's the Act. So when I talk about the Act this morning, that's the Act I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yes, and the Act is called the Public Sector Employees Pension Fund. Now, the name is important. It says, so you have what we have now is a national insurance scheme. Because they do not only provide pension, they provide other benefits, sickness benefit, maternity leave, different things. This act is called Public Sector Employees. So the first thing is that it is referring to public sector employees only.
Yes. And
in Schedule 1, the minister in this schedule can add statutory bodies.
All right.
Yes. So currently, you have 5 statutory bodies that are named in this act.
Okay.
But you can add as
go along, could be tweaked. All right.
Right. So let's clear up that first. That is public sector employees. And by public sector employees, as I mentioned last week, you do not have one Public Sector Employees Pension Act. You remember last week I said you have the School Teachers Pension Act,
yes,
the Prison Pension Act, the Police Pension Act, the Public Officers Pension Act. So these are employees of the state, which we refer to as public sector employees. So this one is a pension fund. So it is different from the normal, like what we know as a pension scheme.
A pension scheme.
Yes.
In reference to the 1958 Pension Act, more or less.
Well, no, the 1958 pension. Okay, the 1958 Pension Act makes provision for a pension which is non-contributory.
Okay.
This one is a contributory plan. As we go on, I'll explain that. So, if you compare it with 1958. Remember, 1958 employees and employers, sometimes you say, well, employees do not contribute. This non-contributory means no party contributed.
Okay.
The government does not put aside a fund.
The government was just taking that and it was paid for through as you said, it was within the budget at the same time.
Yes, when every year the government must make an allocation in the budget for NS. It's not that the government over the years will put aside a fund every month so that when public sector employees retire, then they go to this fund and use the money to pay. No, it's not like that. No side contribute. Because I find sometimes when you use the term non-contributory, they say, well, workers don't have to pay anything. Well, at the end of the day, the state must pay. Yeah. Whoever is the government, because it's a state, the state must pay, but the state upfront do not contribute, do not put aside money. In this plan, so I'm saying that the state, in this new pension fund, bearing in mind what I said is a fund, both sides must contribute now.
Yes.
So it says that if your salary is below the NIS ceiling, which was 5,000, it has moved now to 5,002, you pay 3%. And above that amount, you pay 6%. Okay. So you will contribute that amount, and the government will match it. That's a big difference in this plan, you know. Yeah. In this contributory plan, both sides contribute towards this fund.
But would you say, not to cut in your free of thought, but would you say it's a better plan this time around?
Well, I wouldn't make the determination. When we discuss it, let the employees determine that. Because, you see, as you bring that up, there's a section in the Constitution that says any new plan must be more, in other words, be more beneficial then.
Yes.
Of greater advantage then. And then there are certain tests you will have to use to know whether it is better. So
I get a period of time is needed, more or less.
Yeah, so I said, no, presently, you study what the 58 gives, non-contributory, planned, and at the end of the day, you get a pension.
Yes.
You contribute on both sides, and we will go into what you will get. Okay. And then you will decide whether this plan is better than the other one.
Understandably so.
Yes. So what I want to do this morning is just stick strictly to what the Act says and spend less time interpreting it, because I've heard the debate in both houses in Parliament, and there are differences of views on a simple clause, which I'll come to. And you have some lawyers that are saying certain aspect of this act is unconstitutional. Well, I'm not getting into that. If it's unconstitutional, it could be challenged in court.
Yeah.
Would go to the Constitutional Court. So we not get what we are pointing out this morning, what I am pointing out in our discussion is just explaining how this fund will operate and what benefits the workers will have to get. So we start out now with who qualifies, right? So it says, subject to the provision of this section, and as from the date of operation of this act, the provision of this act shall apply to, and it states the following. Now, this act came into effect on the 1st of January 2025.
Yes.
Right? So when it says from the date of operation, so we're talking about from the 1st of January 2025, this act shall apply to all new public sector employees, that's A. B, all public sector employees who hold non-pensionable office by virtue of a relevant enactment, and the relevant enactment is what I mentioned before, the prison, police, teachers, and so on. If you hold a non-pensionable office by virtue of some act, then it will apply to you. It will apply to you if you neither attain the age of 50 years and nor have been employed with the government for a period exceeding 15 years and are not eligible to receive a pension, gratuity, or other allowances in accordance with the relevant enactment again. And C, all employees of the government who are currently employed in the public service on a contractual basis and by virtue of the terms and conditions of the contract are not eligible to receive a gratuity. So if you have a contract and you are not eligible to get a gratuity, then this act will apply to you.
Okay.
But that's the part now that you had a lot of debate over. So that was Section 3, subsection 1. So I'm going to read Section 3, subsection 2 now. The provision of this act shall not apply to. So we discussed who it would apply to.
Yes.
Yes, so it's important to come to say who it will not apply to. Employees of the government who are employed in the public service on a contractual basis, whether fixed term or otherwise, and who by virtue of the terms and conditions of the contract are eligible to receive a gratuity. So if you have a contract, and by virtue of the terms and conditions of the contract, you are eligible to receive a gratuity, then this act will not apply to you. No, because remember, that had to be said, because what I read before is that they said this act shall apply to people on contract, right?
Yeah.
We just read that. But that is people on contract who are not eligible to receive a gratuity. That's in the fourth section.
Yes.
He's saying, if you're on contract and you're not eligible to receive a gratuity, then the act will apply to you.
All right.
And that's why...
Then you can receive that pension.
Right. Then it says, so if you have a contract, so you're not just a blanket statement, well, you have a contract, so you're not eligible. It's saying here now, if you have a contract, fixed term or otherwise, and by virtue of the terms and the condition of that contract, you're eligible to receive a gratuity, then this act will not apply to you.
Okay.
Right? B, it says, employees of the government who are currently employed in the public service for a period exceeding 15 years and are 15 years of age or older, this act will not apply to you. So the question is, what will apply to these people?
Define that a little bit for us.
Yes, of course, we need to.
Define that a wee bit for me.
Right,
a wee bit.
Right. So it is saying that if you're a government employee, you're currently employed in the public service, but you exceed 15 years, and you're 50 years or older, then this act will not apply to you. If you're entitled to some gratuity or pension under some previous act, you will get it under your previous act. The question is, what happened to those who are not entitled, like the daily paid, the unestablished, who worked for 15 years and exceed is both conditions, they must be satisfied.
Okay.
So the first one is that you are currently employed for a period exceeding 15 years and you are 50 years of age or older, this act would not apply to you. Now, remember, when we come to the next section, we'll see that if you work in the public service for 5 or 10 years and this act come and you're under 50, the government is going to do what they call credit, give you credit to make it up. But if you exceed 15 years and you're over the age of 50, then you wouldn't get it.
You wouldn't get anything.
No, you would not qualify.
But what are you entitled to?
Well, if you are not entitled to nothing, you will just get the NS.
And that's basically...
yes, so it still exclude a group of workers that is not catering for. Well, I do not have the figures to know how many people that really in the service 15 years, but I would imagine there would be people there over 15 years and past the age of 50 looking to retire shortly.
So all they will actually end up with is the NIS benefits.
Just the NIS benefit according to this act, and that's why it provoked so much debate. And it maybe the government side may wish to address it, clarify to the workers. And of course, if you temporary employees, that the act wouldn't apply to you if you work in temporary.
Okay.
And persons who are seconded from statutory bodies or agencies and that have their own pension arrangement. So if you are seconded from GBN to GIS, for example, but GBN have their own pension arrangement, then this act would not apply to you.
It would not apply to you.
No, because you come it over with your own pension arrangement. And it says, for the avoidance of doubt The law to be applied with respect to the payment of pension, gratuities, and allowances to public officer, a teacher, police officer, or a prison officer who has been so employed prior to the date of operation of this Act and is eligible to receive a pension, gratuity, or other allowance shall be the relevant enactment which applies to them. So, for police, teacher, and the reason they state it that way, because as I mentioned, these are different acts. So that's why the Act have to say, for a person who is a public officer, A, B, a teacher, C, a police officer, D, a prison officer, they have to repeat that, and you are entitled to receive a pension and gratuity under some other act.
Yes.
Then this one would not apply to you.
Okay.
Right? So, and we will see later where it says, and why they would not apply to you, there is a section in the Act, section 6.3, that says you can opt to apply under this Act within 12 months of this Act coming into being. You can opt to join it. However, if you opt to join it, you cannot rescind their decision.
Okay.
And you would not benefit.
If I'm to understand this, if you opt to decide that you want to join this new pension plan,
right? So
do you mean that you have to forego the previous pension act that has been there?
Yes. Well, let me read 6.3. It is in 6.3. It says, a public officer, a teacher, police officer, or prison officer who is so employed on the date of operation of this Act and eligible to receive a pension, gratuity, or other allowances in accordance with the provision of any of the relevant enactments which we described before, may in the prescribed manner within 12 months after the date of the operation of this Act opt to become a member of the scheme by completing the registration in the prescribed manner, and such option, once exercised and approved by the board, shall not be rescinded, and thereafter the provision of the relevant enactment shall no longer apply to the public officer, teacher, police officer, or prison officer in relation to the payment of pension, gratuity, and other allowance.
Okay.
So once you opt
to take the new plan.
Well,
it's only so you cannot go back to the older plan
and get any benefits. So you will have to decide whether you're giving up a non-contributory plan.
All right.
Take this saving fund, because once you do it on the board and it's approved, then it's no going back.
Okay.
You will have to. You would not get to both of them then. You would not get 58, the pension under 58. And then you get under this one.
Well, it's a bit understandable from that sort of point. No one would like someone to be receiving two pensions at the same time. I don't think government would like to see someone receiving that at the same time. So that is understandable from that point.
People receive what they're entitled to under law.
Yeah.
So if there is a law that gives you that,
but if you decide to forego one, then there's only one that you can stick to.
Well, the thing is, but the thing. No, why do you have to forego if you have a pension fund that is now created?
Yes.
From the 1st of January, and I am entitled to 58. And I want to join this one because I want to put my savings there, because government is putting 2,
Yeah.
So I am putting 3 or 6, and the government so I like that, but I don't want to forego
the previous pension.
The previous pension, which I'm entitled to.
Yes.
I don't want to forego it, but now you see, if I opt, because it's optional. If I opt to join
the new pension plan,
yes,
I have to forego the previous one.
Yes, see, you can get both. But in my view, it should be optional now. And if I exercise that option to join the new scheme, because it's a saving fund, then why I shouldn't hold on to what I'm entitled to? But this way, say, no, listen. In fact, the purpose for this act is to eventually have one pension fund, besides the NS.
Okay.
We're talking about the government now. Because, you see, the government, very concerned at the fact that there is no, in the 50th Act, as I started out by saying, and as you ask, there is no fund put aside for anything. So the government saying, listen, we cannot continue a scheme like that, right, in perpetuity. So let's put a new fund in place. So eventually, the way this is structured, this fund will then become what you're entitled to.
All right.
That is simple. That is what is good. That's why it's saying, if you opt for this one, then you give up the other one that you were entitled to. Of course, if you're not entitled to the 58, well, of course, you're covered under this fund because you're contributing, and the incentive is really because it is matching. So you put in 3% government.
Well, there's that vesting period that comes around.
Yes, there's a vesting
period that says if you get 100% after 5 years.
Right.
All right. You get, of course, 80% after 4 years, and it, depending on how many years you stay there, you want to collect as much as you can in terms of the percentage. And someone who decides, well, I'm going to take 40%. You're going to get that's after 2 years. That's how you're going to get the amount in terms of whatever is the contribution from that particular employee.
Well, they have no. Actually, we have to go to how it is, how you benefit. You see, after you would have paid into the plan, we now need to look at in your next section how you would benefit. What percentage you could draw down.
Well, they're saying after 5 years, you're entitled to 100%. After paying your contributions, of course, 4 or 5 years, you're entitled to 100% of whatever benefits that should be coming to you. Is that the direction you will make it?
Well, no. What I'm saying, I think it's better if we actually turn to the Act.
Okay.
And let us. So I'll turn to Section 50 because the program is widely listened to because of the amount of feedback I got.
Yeah.
People found it very informative, and therefore today we want to really continue in that line.
All right.
So let's go directly to Section 50 to hear what it says. Let's read there what it says. Okay. So I'm reading from the Act now. Okay, so that's Section 6 deal with management and administration of fund and claims and benefits. So you have, if you resign, how much you'll get, if you take only retirement, if it's normal. So Section 50 deals with normal retirement.
Okay.
So that's the first one I'm going to. A member who retires on attaining normal retirement age shall be entitled to a lump sum cash payment of up to 25% of the combined amount contained in the member's contribution account, the employer contribution account, and the past service credit account. That's the word combined account because they said the employer is paying.
Yes.
The employee is paying. The credits, the past service credit that the government would have put these combined account, it says shall be entitled to a lump sum cash payment of up to 25% of the combined amount. Right, you're getting 25% of that. So your question is, I know you have asked me what happened to the remaining amount.
Yes.
So again, we go back to the law. So subsection 2, the remaining amount shall be available to the member in A, monthly or quarterly installments, or withdrawals over a minimum period of 4 years.
Okay.
So the minimum period you have to withdraw the balance, right? The balance now, because remember, A says you're going to get 25% of your combined. So
and that's that one-time lump sum.
Yes.
Of 25%.
You see, people like this thing called gratuity. That is their money again, you know.
Yeah.
You come back to the same 50, what I explained last week, you know, where you only get a gratuity because you take a reduced pension. The same thing because you took 25%. Up front, right? You take a cash withdrawal.
Yes.
Of 25%.
And that is only doable before retirement or after retirement?
No, this one is when you retire.
It's when you retire.
Yes,
you get that 25%.
Yes. So the normal retirement, right? Age. So you could take 25% of this combined amount up front, and the salient point that you raise will happen to the remaining amount. And of course, people will be concerned, well, I have 75%. The remaining amount, as I said, can be withdrawn monthly or quarterly over a minimum period of 4 years.
4 years.
A monthly annuity, well, and you could purchase that from a life insurance company that you could select. Now, so if you take it, the 75%. The question here is...
Or the 25%. If you took that 25%.
Right, and then you have 75%.
75% remaining.
And you could withdraw it monthly or quarterly over a minimum period of 4 years. You can do it before 4 years, minimum. So I decided to take it over 5 years, right? Because I passed the minimum. Well, I have nothing else to get.
So if you completely draw down that 75% within that 4 or 5 year period, after that, that's the end of it.
But you have no more money in the fund?
Yeah.
Well, no, let's see. Well, there's no more money because except you purchase an annuity with some insurance. Now, because you 25%, you take it, you are 75%, you could withdraw it monthly or quarterly. You cannot withdraw it before 4 years. The period must be exceeding 4 years.
All right.
So I decided to take the 75% over a 5 year period, so I certify the minimum requirement. After that, I've withdrawn the money. I have. So,
but wouldn't it be the same like the 1958 Pension Act that you will receive your lump sum? I'm just assuming, or is it only done in where you will see if your pension was $100,000 and you get that $100,000? But now in the new pension plan, you are allowed 25% upfront. In the new pension plan, is it that what this is saying? I'm just creating a bit of an analogy.
No, the under 50, you get it for life.
Yes.
No,
so that will be for life.
No, this one can...
The 58th pension plan, I understand.
Oh, yes, for life.
That's a lifetime pension plan.
For life.
There's no 4 year period or 5 year period or minimum period.
That's what I'm telling you. When you're looking at when you ask me the first question about which one is more beneficial to you, the worker will take all that into consideration. I'm getting a pension for life under the 58th pension. In fact, how it operates, I explained that last week, but just to recap, at the time you take a reduced pension, and they give you a gratuity. Then after 12 years, you go up to your full pension. And you get it for the rest of your life. There's no cut-off period until that.
Until that.
Now, this one is saying, well, the money is there, combined amount. You can take 25%, and then the next 75% you could withdraw monthly, quarterly, over a period of time. So when that amount is exhausted, well, you have no more money.
And so it cuts off, and that's the end of it.
That is the end of it.
We're due for a break, Mr. Drew. Let's take that break. When we come back, we continue with the conversation. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio TV. We're due for a break. We're coming right back. Stay with us. We still have much more to discuss. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get ready for a spectacular music experience. It's the premiere of Jefferson in Concert, featuring an incredible lineup including Sabrina Francis, Joshua Regrello, Dash, and Mr. Golden. Feel the passion, the energy, and the rhythm right from the screen. Thursday, 20th February, 8:30 p.m. on GBN Television. Don't miss the premiere of Jefferson in Concert, only on GBN.
Grenada, the ultimate ultimate relay showdown is back. Get ready for speed, power, and heart-pounding action as the IMA National Relay Meet takes over the Kirani James National Stadium on Saturday, February 22nd from 3 p.m. The fastest teams, the fiercest competition, and non-stop edge-of-your-seat excitement. Who will dominate the track? Who will claim the glory? Only one way to find out. Be there. Tickets, finish line A, $50. Finish line B, $40. Main stand C, $30. Secondary stand, $20. Bleachers, $15. Children 12 and under pay $15 for the main stand C, secondary stand, and bleachers. Get your tickets now and experience the thrill of champions. The IMA National Relay Meet. Feel the speed. Witness the greatness.
One stage, full categories, 80 incredible dance talents. Experience the rhythms of the world as dancers bring culture to life with breathtaking performances. Who will take away the crown? Witness the passion, the energy, the artistry. Don't miss the ultimate global dance competition around the world in 80 dance talents. Call 407-8458 to register your group or solo act. Follow at GBN for updates.
Welcome back once again, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's to the point here on Classic Radio GBN TV. With me this morning, representing the opposition here on the program, we have Mr. Oliver Joseph with us this morning, and we talking, of course, should I say, a continuation of last week's program, where we were talking about, of course, the 1958 Pension Act and, of course, the new pension plan that is out right now. Welcome back once again, Mr. Joseph. I want to ask you a question along those lines. What are some of the worrying factors with both plans coexisting? What are some of the worrying factors from your point of view?
Well, from what I think based on the way the legislation is done, I remember there is a fund, as I said, and one of the worrying factors is the one that we ended on at the break, that, well, I take 25% and the next 75% I take it, and that's it. That's a worrying factor. The second worrying factor for members is the investment of the funds.
Yeah.
So a board of trustees will be set up. They'll be charged with investing the funds. As the workers at Hobart and the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Union happened to the pension fund, it was invested in Clico and Baico.
Yes.
They have not now, you know. They're home because these two companies went down with all the funds, so the risk, so the risk factor. Now with the 58, because it's the state that have to pay. Whichever government that come, they have to pay.
Yes,
guys paying from the consolidated fund, and the government has the ability to raise taxes, which the private sector do not have or that. So you have to pay this pension for life. You must budget for it, and you want to raise the amount of money to meet when you can raise taxes, because that is one of the features of government. Through fiscal policy, they use fiscal policy to manage the economy, to determine the expenditure. So government has that ability, so people have confidence that they will get the money from government. But with this fund, if they make an investment, well, investment is risky. And sometimes they say the higher the return, the higher the risk. And you go into a high risk investment, and it went down like how Clico and Baico, and then.
We're certainly hoping that doesn't happen, though.
No, I'm not saying.
We're certainly hoping that.
Well, I don't think
happen
the
again.
government will. The government will be cautious now.
Yeah.
But by the way, you know the matter went to court.
Yeah.
And, but you know the applicants lost. They were trying to hold the Trinidad and Tobago government accountable. Could say no.
Yeah, could say no.
You're right. So the risk, you see, government will say, well, we will, in the event of any investment that turns out to be that it does not that turns out that it cannot pay the funding institution pay, the government will come in and pay. People always like to know when they have the backing of government, the state, because that's why when you're talking about you owe money, so the government take a loan, well, they will lend you. It doesn't matter which government that comes, the state owes the money, so financial institution does not look and say, well, when NNP was there, they borrow 10 billion, they're afraid if NDC come, they would not pay us back. No, in the world doesn't operate that way. The money was given to the state for use by the government at the time, and the government is a continuum, and whichever government comes must pay.
All right.
So if going on now, we looked at the retirement age. So just briefly on early retirement now.
Yes.
As you had asked me during the break, the early retirement. That would be section 51. 50 deals with the normal retirement age.
And of course the percentage that they will receive,
right.
and so forth.
So we go to what happened to early retirement. You see, under the 58 Act, you could qualify on the grounds of service. So if you make 26 and 2/3 years, regardless of your age, you can go.
Okay.
And get your benefit. So you could take the early retirement. If you start to work at the age of 20, at 46, and I would say 47, you can go.
Yes.
You qualify, you were appointed, you're established staff, and get your benefit. Now, let's see what happens with the early retirement. Section 51 says, a member who retires on attaining early retirement age shall be entitled to a lump sum cash payment of up to 25% of the combined amount contained in the member contribution account and the past service credit contribution account of the member, where such account has been so established pursuant to Section 44. 44 deals with the establishment of the fund. The amount in the employer contribution account and the remaining amounts in the member contribution account and past service credit account, if any, shall be available to the member in the same manner as specified in 52. The same manner I just read, meaning you take 25, the other 75% you could draw it down over a period of time, but a minimum of 4 years.
4 years.
You have to be over that. If the members attain the age of early retirement specified in the relevant enactment related to the member and is no longer employed by an employer, where the amount at the time specified in subsection 2 is less than $24,000, the member may withdraw the balance at the member's discretion. Although there's an important distinction here, because all along we're talking about a percentage. We are not talking about a fixed
sum.
Yes, fixed sum. But it says early retirement where the amount at the time specified in subsection 2, which we thought is less than $24,000. So if at the time of early retirement, the amount you have there
accumulated,
yes, is less than 24,000, the member may withdraw the balance at the member's discretion. If it's less than 24,000, you could withdraw it at your discretion. In other words, the minimum period of 4 years that we are talking about does not apply.
Does not apply.
No.
Okay. But you still get that upfront 25%, but the balance you in your discretion.
This balance of is less than, if it's less than
24, you could do that at your own. So you can take it in two if you wish to.
Yeah, yes. If it's less than 24,000,
okay,
that's left.
And that only work with the new pension plan.
The new pension plan.
If you decide. And what year? What is that year of retirement that is as of today? Early retirement year. So, but do you have to do that 20 plus years plus in order to do that?
Right. So, and that's why it says, in accordance with the relevant law that you would have been entitled to. So, as I said, if you are a police officer under the rank of inspector, which they call non-commissioned officer.
Yeah.
It's 20 years.
Okay.
Teachers, public officers, 26 and 2/3. However, at the age of 55, you can take early retirement. Yeah. So you have to, when you are doing this, you have to look at what in this act says as early retirement age, and you decide to take it. And then if the balance is less than 24,000, you take it at your discretion. There is no set amount.
Okay.
You just say, okay, well, I want all. I want the remainder. But if you do that, then you don't have no pension to get.
All right.
Because you take it as it is.
A thought that is coming to mind. Let's be talking about the way forward for the pension in Grenada in terms of the long-term sustainability in an economy of Grenada. Is highly dependent on external support a whole lot. How sustainable is this particular pension, as you said, fund in the long run for Grenada, an economy like ours?
Well, okay. First of all, if you're asking about the fund, this fund will be managed by a board of trustees who will make investment to get a return on the investment.
Yes.
That's how. And you have pension funds operating all over.
All over the world.
They will try to get the best return on investment so that when the time comes for payment, and if everybody exercises the right to take the 25 and then the 75 in quick order, then how will cover administrative costs and all this, because you have other costs to meet.
Yes. Which
must come from the admin, because you have a board administering the funds. Now, that is a less burden for the government, because up front the government is contributing the 3% or the 6%. What the government is trying to get away from is the fact that we have this non-contributory plan, and when you allocate it in the budget, and you have to find money to put there. If it reaches the state, there was a time in Grenada where, in 2013, just before between 2008 and 2013, in 2013. When we came into office in 2013, the government at the time, the NDC government at the time, the 2008 NDC government, 70% of the recurrent expenditure was going towards wages, salaries, and pensions. So they only had 30% to do everything else.
Okay.
To take care of health, social services, and everything else. And so the government is worried that they may reach to a point where the pension, when they have to budget such high allocations of pension, other things will suffer. So let's put a new plan in place, right? With the hope that eventually this new plan will replace the 58 pension. That is really the intention, because that is what they are looking at and saying, well, it's not about just us as the government. No, the state having to carry this bill into the future that could affect the development of the state. Because if you have only 30% to do everything else, we got this amount to 45%, from 70 to 45. So we had 55% to do other things, to do work. And that is a real fact. That has nothing to do with which government there or the politics of it, It's a real challenge. And that is a challenge that every government faces, Now, with proper fiscal management, and that's why we had so many legislation in place, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that sets the limit for the debt to GDP ratio, your wage bill, to all these factors that was set there, was to tighten our fiscal position to make it strong, So when we talk about the 500 and something million that was left there, that 500, that money was what is referred to as fiscal buffers, The government has strong buffer because we said, listen, we'll have to pay the pension. we'll have to do big capital projects. And we do not want to borrow because we have to keep the debt to GDP ratio at a certain level. So let us have these fiscal buffers there that we could use. And so we had to control recurrent expenditure. And for government, one of the largest recurrent expenditure is wages, salaries, pension. You have to control that. At the same time, you need to grow the GDP because these things are measured internationally by if you talk about debt to GDP ratio, your recurrent expenditure to GDP, everything is measured against GDP. So what you need to do is grow the GDP. How do you grow GDP? GDP is output of goods and services, so we need to produce more.
Okay.
Right? In order to grow the GDP.
A question I would like to ask, if of course, and then we turn over to our listeners. We may take an extra 5 or 10 minutes within the next hour, just in terms, because I know there are callers who may like to ask a question or two. Now, if the NMP was in power today, and of course today, would the pension reform be a top priority for you? And will they have similar components to the present administration? If I can ask that question.
Pension reform will be, and we had announced that.
Yeah.
In fact, we had a committee set up to review it. We had experts from the World Bank, but it would not be the same as what is contained in this act.
Yeah.
It will be different from what is contained here, but we recognize the need to deal with pension because it is a cost to the state, a high cost. And we are seeing that this bill needed further consultation and a much more consultation than the way it was rushed through so that it can come into effect from the 1st of January. Okay. We think that with wider consultation, because you have the lawyers are saying parts of it is unconstitutional, you have the union saying that we not satisfied with certain provisions of it. We think they could be tweaked and strengthened and make more favorable. And you have our party saying, listen, these bills should only be submitted for the first reading and then send it out for public consultation. And I think if you had with a consultation before this bill was enacted, you will see a much better outcome that will benefit everyone. But yes, you need to look at the pension reform and ensure that as we move forward, they're able to manage this better. And the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Public Finance Management Act, and all this legislation has served Grenada well. And we think that this government should comply with these laws.
Okay. We're, of course, going to open up the lines to our listeners and viewers in this segment, 435-2041. You can do so via the WhatsApp and also the direct line, 435-2041. I beg of you, for time purposes, folks, please keep your comments or your contribution minimal. Just ask your question directly and we move on. Let's take our first caller. Caller, you're live. Good morning. Caller, good morning. You're live. I think we may have lost that caller. Let's try the WhatsApp. WhatsApp caller, good morning. You're live.
Yeah, good morning, GT. Good morning, Mr. Joseph.
Good morning,
Mr. Joseph. Okay, I just need a yes and a no answer from you. Can you tell me that the pension reform that was passed in Parliament, do you think is a good thing for people? Either yes or no. And my second question to you, okay, I listened to you guys and a meeting in Guave, and we heard that your political leader coming down against the borrowing, all right, of the 7 million, whatever. Then we heard Mr. Boswin say that he thinks that the government should be borrowing more. You know what I mean? So then I want to know, what would be your answer to Mr. Boswin? Is Mr. Boswin wrong or Mr. Boswin right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Appreciate your contribution this morning. Let's get
caller, the caller. Not every question deserves a no or yes answer. And that's what we have to get away from, this binary thinking. If the act is good or bad, that's not an issue here. The workers who have to benefit on that will make that assessment, and it's not really good or bad. Either it's beneficial to the workers, whether it is better than the 1958 Act, they stand to benefit. No, that's where the analysis has to go. Secondly, and the question of borrowing, I will wait. I will only pass judgment after the budget. Because if you said you plan to borrow X amount, I'll want to see what you're going to do with it before I do any analysis or make any comment whether I should borrow more or less or this amount. So ask me that question after the budget and I'll answer whether or not the borrowing of 725 million was justifiable.
Okay, we do have another caller. Caller, your life. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings to you and greetings to your guest, Mr. Joseph.
Good.
I just like you to satisfy my curiosity. If anybody else hang on, well, hallelujah. Hear this. Have you heard of Section or Article 47 of the National Insurance Act?
Yes.
My question to you, sir. After all these years, because my understanding also from one of the legal luminaries of this on the matter is that component of the national insurance system was taken as, in other words, validated. All right, that the part that was discarded was that of the pension, whatever it is, Disqualification Act. So Section 47 or Article 47 was accepted as law in this here country. But for whatever reason, no attention was paid to it for a period in excess of 20 years. It was only when people who had joined the services somewhere around the fall of the implosion of the revolution that the things started to come out. My question is, do you think that had this issue been taken up, because there provisions have been made for the establishment of a fund, also one of the funds that we're talking about today and has been established recently, do you think that if that was done, we may have saved ourselves a lot of the inconveniences that we're going through now? Secondly, sir, I have my views relative to the setting up of this new fund. Of course, that's my personal thing. But I consider that with the NIS, in excess of 40 years experience with enhanced physical infrastructure and an administrative structure which has survived all the modern haircuts but scalps of the previous administrations, bleeding it of its funds, so that you can't even attend to the people who receive pensional benefits now. Do you think that it's a worthy thing to establish a different fund and not allow or permit or put into the hands of the NIS the running of this new fund so that we can save ourselves additional expenditure? Indeed, in this here country today is Toby now and Moby now. Two of everything but not one works. More of everything but not one works. Give me your view on that. Thank you for what it's worth. Do have a nice day, will you, sir?
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much.
Thank you. First of all, caller, I agree with you fully on your last point that this fund should be managed and run by the National Insurance Scheme because it is well run and well managed. So I agree with you fully on that. No disagreement there. The first question, this act here, that I'm reading from, it's Section 79 says, Section 47 of the National Insurance Act is hereby repealed. So this act now repeals Section 47 of the National Insurance Act. You are saying, well, maybe it should have been done long before and prevent. Well, I'm not sure if it was done before. Because what this pension, remember, what this is trying to address, this act is trying to address a 1958 pension that is non-contributory, that the state at the end of the day must find the money to pay. That is what this act is addressing. So I don't know if you had addressed the 79 that would change that. Because the challenge here is this colonial pension that was introduced when there were only a few hundred people in the public service that has now grown to over 6,000, and therefore you have to make this allocation, and nothing wrong in making allocation for pension, but when you make it allocation, if you is going to exceed a certain amount, then you have less money to spend, as I said, for other things. So, caller, as I said, I agree with you on the last point you made, and this point as to whether that would have addressed this current problem. I don't think it would address it, because you still face the question of a non-contributory 58 pension that you must pay workers for the rest of their life, and there is no fund put aside.
We do have another caller. Caller, you're live. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Let me say good morning to Oliver. Chester Humphrey here.
Yes.
I've been driving and listening to this program. Very informative. And of course, Oliver always knows his technical stuff to a T. Let me just say quickly, first and foremost, the recently passed Pension Act was too hurriedly done. There is no reasonable, sustained reason, to put it that way, why this matter should not have received much wider engagement and consultation and input, right? And to have passed it through all of its stages in one sitting. Now, this is a very important piece of socio-economic legislation that is absolutely necessary, because what has happened is this. In the administration of the state, moving from a colonial state with a construct which was adequate for a plantation economy, we are now way beyond that in a different international socio-economic construct. So you had a social benefit created under colonial times, and as Oliver said, for a numerically very small public service. So now you have a public service that has expanded to the extent that more than 6% of the on-island population is employed by the state in a direct way. And it places enormous strains on the revenues of the state, which has become diminished over time because of the collapse of the rural economy and colonial relationships we enjoyed by secure markets in a world now which is exceedingly aggressive and cold, in which you have to compete whether or not you have resources, whether or not you have population size and economy of states. You have to compete almost now on an equal footing with all the big countries with all the resources. So it's an impossibility. And one of the things that the country has to come to terms with, and this is not just a matter for trade unions only, it's a matter for the entire citizenry, because this is an obligation that the state owns. This is not an obligation of a political party. This is an obligation of the state, in which every citizen has to finance this obligation. And therefore, to finance it, every citizen must be given an opportunity to have the widest engagement of what it is we can do. There are two fundamental questions that need to be answered. And they are difficult political questions, but there are serious economic issues involved. First and foremost, could the current Grenada economic construct sustain a 1958 colonial pension? Is that, first of all, economically feasible? I think the evidence is overwhelming that it is not. The question, therefore, is, and the second question is it possible, living in the current economic construct and socio-economic environment, is it possible for a worker to be able, throughout his working life, to make no provisions for his old age security when everything in the economy has become now monetarized? Right? We've seen a collapse of many of the colonial structures. So take, for example, the question of health. right? And one of the things one of the good legacies of British colonialism is that it left us with socialized public health care. In its current format, is that sustainable? Well, the evidence is overwhelming. It is not. I mean, just look at the state of the services provided by the state for the citizens in health. Therefore, new constructs have to be designed. And the problem that we have is, one, these issues are seen purely on political partisan terms, and not on national terms that should involve a wide debate, not only of those who are principally involved, because the taxpayers have to fund this. So the taxpayers, every citizen, everyone resident in Grenada is a taxpayer. You may not be paying income tax, but then you're paying VAT, you're paying different kinds of taxes. So all of us are taxpayers. Right, so that's a problem there in itself. I know I'm a bit long-winded. The other thing is this: there are some aspects of this, and both Rollo and Oliver have made two very critical strategic points, and that is one of the weaknesses of this new pension plan is the duplicity that it has created in the face of an obvious paucity of human resource with a technical capacity. Now we have an institution called NIS. It is well respected. It has never been accused of any malfeasance or any untoward business. It has been well run. In fact, it is one of the better run, if not the best run, social security service in CARICOM. Right? Whatever challenges it may face on liquidity issues has nothing to do with the NIS per se, but has to do with the policymakers, has to do with the cabinet, which has consistently refused under the governments of both political parties to implement recommendations made for the guaranteed sustainability. That is the actuary's report. And therefore has led us to a situation where we not that we face imminent collapse, but we're at a point where we should never have been. All right? Nonetheless, it is the best state-owned institution run in this country. And to go and set up a parallel body with no experience, I think we are courting disaster. But then again, these governments are advised by consultants who are always looking for employment. So I would suspect that, and they have enormous influence over the reigning political party because they would have played a role in bringing that political party into state power. And therefore, given the limitations of wealth creation, all of these consultants are looking for some place to feed. And I suspect that they will be able to influence the politicians. The other thing about...
Cole, I'm going to have to ask you to take 10 seconds and wrap because we are way bit over time. So,
sorry. All right.
So okay. I may ask you to take a wrap. I appreciate your contribution.
I think another round of discussion on this matter here, because there are a lot of weaknesses in this latest pension plan that's launched. A pension plan that opens itself to be consumed before a worker reaches retirement age is really not a pension plan, but a saving plan that will only drive consumption. And therefore, the objective of securing one's old age is being defeated by allowing people to be able to go into the plan and take out the money before they reach a retirement age. So ultimately, we'll come back to the state having to subsidize a large section of people whose old age security is in crisis because they would have eaten out all their old age savings. And that's a major weakness. I heard that as a boast of one of the strengths of the plan, but it's a major weakness of the plan, and it tells you how much little thought the members of the cabinet would have had in terms of being briefed themselves on what they are proposing and to become prepared to defend. But there's an opportunity for amendments, and it is up to the opposition to bring those amendments, articulate those amendments, and so on, and see how we could improve it. But finally, it is a step in the right direction because the parallel civil service has many, many more people, probably larger than the formal civil service, and none of these individuals have any old age security outside of this of the national state NIS pension plan, which is not adequate to take care of a significant part of your old age sustenance.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. We are way a bit over time, of course. We appreciate the last caller's contribution, but it's about time for us to take our.
Yes,
anything in closing before we take our.
Well, no, the last caller made some very important points, and that is why when you asked me about the bill, I said this bill needed a lot more consultation, and the caller strengthened that. Okay, look how many things the caller pointed out that could have been addressed. I think we would have had a better bill if there was extensive consultation. These last two sessions, as I told you that we're having here, the feedback I got shows that people are anxious to know more. But no, so I think now it's not too late. We could have some further discussion. Amendments could be made to the bill. I hope that we will seriously consider the weaknesses and see how we can address them in going forward. So I want to thank you for the opportunity again to come here and GBN and discuss this pension.
All right. So Joseph, I want to thank you once again. We way a bit over time this morning, but I want to thank you once again. The conversation was certainly fruitful. Have yourself a good day, sir.
Thank you very much, and same to you.
So we say goodbye to our listeners and viewers. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of To The Point. Have yourself a good one. That's what we say goodbye.